viewers, and welcome back to my YouTube channel. I hope you're doing well. Okay, I'm super excited to talk to you about today's video because we have influencers fighting amongst themselves and just spilling tea about each other and talking about what's happening behind the scenes and just using it against each other, and that is music to my little ears. So, Manny and Laura Lee, two names you've probably not heard for quite some time, no disrespect guys, are speaking up against the Ace family and are actually talking about what they've heard behind the scenes, and both of them point blank period are just calling the Ace family liars and using their own experience talking with people within the creator field, but also just behind the scenes in general, and kind of have a little bit of evidence proving that what the Ace family are putting out there about their house, you know, that they were done so dirty with their house and it actually wasn't their fault that their house is up for foreclosure and that they weren't paying their bills and the contractor did them so bad. Basically, these two guys are coming up here and saying that, no, that's not true. We don't believe it. We've been told the opposite by so many people within the space. And now, people were immediately getting drawn to this clip because it's very intriguing whenever you hear about influencers talking about this kind of stuff, because they normally know. Because the influencers in their bubble really don't go far. So there's bubbles of influencers, and then there's one big bubble of influencers, and they all just talk shit about each other through it. And it's not good for them, but it's great for us because we get to talk about it, but not for them living through it. I feel sorry for you. All love. But Manny and Laura now just have so much of like a one-up on them because they are talking about this on their podcast, which is relatively successful, especially in the grand scheme of Manny MUA and Laura Lee. Again, in the least disrespectful way possible, no one's keeping up with Manny MUA these days. No one's keeping up with Laura Lee, especially Laura Lee. And girl, no disrespect. The way they used to. I feel like they're two creators that are just so safe. So there's never anything to really talk about with them. Their videos do well within the amount of subscribers and viewers that they have. They have a good connection with their subscribers, and they now have this podcast. And I've spoken about this podcast maybe once or twice on my YouTube channel before, and I've said that I genuinely like it. Now, I don't keep up with every single episode, but whenever I have time, I will watch certain parts of the podcast because I think they have a great dynamic, and especially in the clip I'm going to show you, whenever they have shit to talk about, they do not hold it back, and it's so refreshing to see, especially the people who were involved in drama not be shy of drama anymore, and not in a way of them just being, you know, problematic or whatever. It's Manny and Laura not being shy to just say their opinions, which is something that happens with a lot of people that get involved in drama. They kind of just go silent, they don't really talk about things. We see Tana never addressing things, Nikita never addressing things. So for seeing these two people address drama in any sort is just really intriguing. So, one of the main points that they touch upon is that the contractor lie, in their opinion, that they say throughout the video, was that the contractor basically led them on to believe that he was going to do something for the house and he never did it, and also made a bunch of fake promises and also completely messed up the property, and that they were the ones who were the victims and all like this. And they are both coming forward and saying actually the same point that I've brought up before, which is that contractors who work on LA mansions, there's not many of them. So they all talk within each other, and now we have it confirmed from Manny MUA that they are talking amongst each other, and he is giving personal experience talking to some of them and people behind the scenes who are in the same bubble as them, that this is not the truth. And the fact that influencers are now starting to talk about the fact that the Ace family lied in their video is so not good for the Ace family, because they now don't just have the commentary space, the journalist space. They now have their own people basically being like, why are you lying again? Because these influencers are seeing that the Ace family get treated so differently just because they are so much more wealthier than them. And they have a problem with it, we have a problem with it, and they're willing to give us the shit, and we just sit back and enjoy it. So we're here for it. Alright, so I have this clip, and we're gonna watch it. This is from Manny and Laura's podcast, talking about the Ace family's video. Let's get into it.
Like, we'll DM, and she'll be like, did you see that? That's a lie.
That's
she'll
a lie.
be lying since the day.
That's
and I'm
a lie.
like, you're right.
That's
and then
a
for me,
lie.
because I forget. I'm a forgetful person. So Laura's always like, do you remember that one time? And I'm like,
do you remember that one time in 2016 I kind of told you a little bit of a lie?
yeah, and I'm like, you're right.
One thing I do want to say that's completely unrelated, but related. Laura Lee, what happened? Because Laura was really successful whenever she was in the group with Jeffrey. Obviously a very toxic friendship. I'm not just blaming Jeffrey for that. I'm also blaming Laura, and I'm blaming Gabriel Zamora and Nikita Dragon and Manny. I'm blaming everyone involved. I think it was a very transactional friendship and very toxic. However, Laura was like on the top of her game, always uploading, always getting PR, always getting sponsorships, and kind of someone that you would watch within the beauty space for reviews or just even a friend to talk to. And then the last thing I remember of her was the really, you know, that crying video, the apology video, which just got, like, listen, I don't mean to rehash anything, but I do just want to say that this, honestly, being 100% honest with you, is the last time that I have any sort of recollection of Laura Lee. Yes, so I typed in Laura Lee, and it is literally just the apology video that shows up first, and it was her just crying. Oh, sorry, this person's putting captions on. Thank you so much. I really appreciate it. Like, do you remember this was the last time we saw her?
It's the hardest things I've ever done. I'm so sorry.
Nothing that I love more than a good apology video. Okay, so that's my last memory of Laura, but I do want to give her some credit where credit is due. It seems that Laura has a completely different audience now. She still kind of does the same thing, but she's kind of more like your big sister now on YouTube, like someone you go to hear just talk. And I mean, good for her for rebranding and continuing to grow on YouTube and stop associating herself with certain people and groups on YouTube. And I mean, the fact that we don't talk about her and the fact that she's not in drama is honestly a credit to her. So I do just want to say that as well. But if you're watching this and you have any memory of following Laura and Manny, what was the journey for Laura between that apology video and now? Because I'm aware of her during the apology video and I'm aware of her now, but what was the transitional period like? I would love to have that conversation. But either way, the version that she's presenting on this podcast, I think is a very relatable, enjoyable to listen to person, and especially Manny as well. And Manny recently has been getting on my tits because he keeps releasing makeup palettes that are not inclusive in any way, and I will talk about that eventually. But in this podcast, they're both a joy to listen to, in my opinion. I don't think you can say that about many YouTube Geo podcasts. Frenemies.
Like, literally, that is Laura, which is great because I feel like it, honestly, it complements our friendship so well.
It does.
So I'll be like, Laura, you need to be a little bit more forgiving.
It's also interesting that this friendship remained while everyone else within that group kind of imploded within themselves. Interesting.
Like, calm,
Yes.
like, it's fine that they're probably being honest.
I'm like, I'll forgive them for lying to me right now because I know it's a lie.
That is the truth. But like the whole situation, it did just seem very,
I don't
very
believe in any
strange.
form or fashion. And if you want to believe that, like, you may be a fan of them.
Your
I'm not.
prerogative.
That's your prerogative. I'm not here to convince
Absolutely.
you not to believe it. I don't believe that they.
I'm here for the bravery. I'm here for just opening up. I really, really, really like this.
Didn't know this contractor, and they had no idea he didn't know what he was doing. They knew it was a cheap outlet to do
But the
things
thing
to
is,
this house.
That's such a good point. That's such a good point. And I brought that up where it's like the Ace family probably hired the cheapest of the cheap and the fakest of the fakest contractors so that they could get everything done for such a steal price so that they could put their money into $45,000 fucking door. And now they're seeing that, oh, that wasn't what they were supposed to be doing because they hired inauthentic people or just people who weren't properly qualified for what they wanted. And they're now trying to blame that person instead of looking inward and seeing who hired that person because they were probably going to give them cheap labor.
The grapevine a little bit.
Here we go.
Through Cody Co. So
Here we
shout out to
go.
Cody Co. On his podcast. He talked about it a little bit. I saw a little clip it. Was that he actually has a really like, well, D had seen kind of through the grapevine a little bit.
Here we go.
Through Cody Co. So
Here
shout
we
out to
go.
Cody Co. On his podcast. He talked about it a little bit. I saw a little clip it. Was that he actually has a realtor friend, and apparently like the realtor world, like it's a pretty small community, and they kind of all talk within each other.
This is what I'm saying. There's not many of them.
So
This is what the Ace family didn't think through, and again, why they've gone silent now talking about this. They're not going to talk about it again because they've now been called out on their lies for them finally addressing their lies, allegedly.
Okay.
the LA realtors, like they're like for big houses, like it's a very small knit
House.
crew.
Yes!
And so they all kind of talk about it, and apparently they told the contractor that this is all like hearsay, obviously. They told the contractor
Allegedly.
this is all alleged that
Our word.
it's actually just for filming. We're not moving in. They told them, like, we're not going to be moving into this house.
And when I tell you, the second they told me we had a scammy, this is why, in my head, what did I say? Lie.
I'm like, so then why would you move in if you knew that it wasn't to be moved into?
Here's the thing as well. We kind of debated back and forth in this, and a lot of you agreed with me whenever I kind of hinted at the fact that this house was probably allegedly a business write-off, like a business tax write-off, because if they're basically hiring shady people to kind of put the house together, and then they solely just work in the house by filming videos, which isn't even work in my opinion, coming from someone who does this. Sorry, no disrespect to anyone else who does this. I just like hearing YouTubers be like, oh, my work. I'm like, girl, shut the fuck up. So they do their work in that house, loosely using that word. And if they're solely doing that and not really living in it because they don't have the certificate of occupancy, they can then be any payment that they do in the house, be taking that off their tax bill, allegedly, and then pay less tax because they put all of their money into this house, which then means that the money that they put into their house is basically like the money that they paid for their business, which means less money that they have to pay for tax, and it's a way of paying less tax. It's a shady business tactic that a lot of these people do. It seems like this is what they've done. Do I put it past them? I think they've done it. Allegedly, in my opinion. And here we literally have content creators confirming that content creators behind the scenes are saying that this house was solely for filming and a business write-off. Allegedly.
Crazy, because what I can clearly see a case of is, what do you call those people who are just like all front, like all show?
Yes!
Just like front. That's like literally a case of what this is. Like they didn't even, it was all just a gimmick. Like
that seemed kind of not the same bracket.
It's not.
It's not the same thing.
Not.
No.
And you can't compare it in that way. And to me, that what makes it really weird is because they talked about things like, oh, we'd have to give like our children like warm bath, like they'd have to like heat up the water for a cold bath.
You chose that,
and I'm like, why aren't you going to a hotel? 100%. It's like you don't have. Again, this is about like the LA culture, almost like you don't have to live out your means.
Culture. That's LA culture.
It's LA culture as a whole. Like this is not even just about the AceFamily. It's LA culture as a whole.
That is LA culture.
It's people always trying to flex so fucking hard on every bitch that's next.
I'm so happy to fucking hear this conversation be had, especially by influencers who can put their hand up and say that this is what LA culture within the influencer space is like, and AceFamily are the pioneers of it, the people who are the forefront of it, who are basically just faking their lifestyle, faking it until they make it. But they faked it too hard and they got yeeted out of that house by the bank. Allegedly. But don't worry, y'all, they'll make sure to tell you that even though they're out of the house, they've got a really good mansion now that they've totally paid for, and they also have all these cars that they're totally not renting. Allegedly, in my opinion. All speculating. Of course. That's what we do here.
And it's like, it's almost like rat race of who can have the most. And it's like, you get into situations like this and it's like, oh my God, woe is me. Like, this sucks that this happened to me. It's like, but no one feels bad for you. If you move in without certificates.
I'm so glad this conversation's happening.
And you choose to move in, and let's say if they really did like, oh, we're not going to move in. It's just for filming. But then you move in, you can't blame anyone except yourself in that situation.
They also made millions and millions and millions of dollars off of showing off that together. It's not.
Mm-hmm. I want to make a point. How many content creators have we seen go to LA and basically fade off within like a year? And people are always like, oh, LA changed them, whatever. No, these people go into a lifestyle within the influencer space that is so show off, show off, show off. Who has more money, who has more things, who has more connections. And they're basically wasting all of their money to try prove that they have a certain lifestyle that they don't, in which the culture of the AceFamily has created within YouTube, and weirdly has brought that culture into family channel culture, which is so fucking weird. Like flexing on what their children have as well. Like, oh yeah, my fucking daughter has a $10,000 backpack, but she has to take a cold bath because we can't afford water. Like, fuck me. It's basically just faking it and losing all of your money. And am I saying that that's what happened in the AceFamily's case? I'm not. But what I'm saying is, So, I want to know your opinion on this. We can talk about it below. I'm so grateful that you decided to watch this video. Thank you so much for your time. And what's your opinion on what Manny and Laura said? And also, what Manny is literally confirming, that behind the scenes, YouTubers are saying that the AceFamily are not only lying, but that contractors behind the scenes are saying that they're lying and that their story does not make sense. They didn't think this through. They did not think this through. Do I think Austin and Catherine are smart enough to have thought it through? no comment. It seems that they thought that they were doing the right thing by making a video throwing everyone under the bus, but, you know, it worked for a couple days, and now the truth is starting to come out. Will they be able to handle it? Will we get another video from them? Possibly. Possibly not. But I want to know your opinion. We'll talk about it below. Thank you again, and bye.